diversified, boy, it's time to break it down. Grab a mic, kill the stage, yeah, second nature now. Mama said I'll make her proud, I told her I made a vow. Just to wait around, in the year I'll put her in a house.
Hey, what's up everybody, this is Nightwing2303 from Nightwing2303.com. Today we have part 5 of the Air Jordan project. This is the performance review on the Air Jordan Retro 5. These released, I think it was last year, 2011. So basically, not wasting too much of your time, let's go ahead and get right into it. So as you can see that we have herringbone traction. This pattern is used on the forefoot as well as on the heel, leaving the midfoot just, you know, plain solid looking rubber, which doesn't matter too much since most of your pressure is going to be placed here on the heel as well as the forefoot area. This worked pretty well, and then there are instances where it did not work as well as it could have. I believe this is mostly from the usage of a translucent sole. I personally feel that solid rubber is just the best, you know, source of traction as far as outsole goes. There are some translucent soles that work perfectly fine no matter what, but this particular setup, I just feel that if it was solid rubber, it would have worked out perfectly fine. There are no Air Jordan 5s with solid rubber that I'm aware of, unless they're in the kid sizes like the toddlers and the infants and all of that stuff. I believe that the grade school sizes have clear as well. So basically, from a front to back standpoint on the forefoot, it worked out perfectly fine. I have pretty much no complaints with it whatsoever. You know, medial and lateral movements, curling around screens, stopping, pushing off to go. Those areas, they were okay. It wasn't the greatest, but it definitely wasn't horrible. It does get worse with more dust. For some reason, translucent soles just like to stick to all types of dirt and debris. So you constantly will have to wipe the outsole here, which, you know, some of us are already used to and things like that. But that's really my only real nitpick with it as far as the forefoot area goes. Other than that, I thought it was perfectly fine. The heel is where I actually had most of my issues with. Upon heel strikes, especially on real quick movements, fast breaks, things like that, or if I was curling around a screen and I'd hit like this and then keep going, as soon as I would hit right here, it would touch that one spot that just doesn't have anything on it. And it was textured when I first started playing in them, but that texture soon wore off. Once that wore off, it slips just a little bit while you start to catch your footing as far as your heel strike goes from your transition. So right when you hit, there's a small slip, not a full slip, just really like just a little, you know, tweak, and it can cause you to hesitate a little bit. So if you're not used to that, that's just something to look out for. It wasn't horrible, but it was something for me where, you know, I rely on that speed, and as soon as I step on the ground, I want to make sure that I'm going to stay there. That little hesitation right there because of that area that has no traction or texture after you use it, that was my only real problem with it. I didn't quite get used to it during the course of my playing time in these, but, you know, for those of you that are larger players, this is probably going to work out perfectly fine for you. If you're a real small, quick guy and you're constantly just running through things, you might want to look for something a little bit different if you wanted to play in actual Air Jordan Retro. As far as cushion goes, it's pretty much the same exact setup that we've seen previously in the Air Jordan 3 and the Air Jordan 4. You have a heel airbag, and then you also have a forefoot airbag. Let me grab these real quick. This was a pair that I used to play in high school. Played in these a lot, in case you hadn't noticed. But yeah, they basically just crumbled. This is what the air unit in the heel looks like. There's no air in these anymore, but this is the bag. So in case anybody was wondering, this is pretty much what's inside of the heel right here. So I think that's kind of cool. The forefoot airbag is a lot slimmer than this one. This one's pretty thick. The forefoot's a little bit slimmer, and then it has like these little grooves in there. It's shaped just like the flex grooves here, so that way the bag is flexing perfectly, you know, in tandem with the rest of the forefoot. So there's no weird restraints or awkward flexes and all that kind of stuff. So, but basically, that's all you get other than the polyurethane midsole. I believe this is still polyurethane. Again, over time, this stuff does crack and crumble. So this is what it looks like now, and all that stuff, it's still falling apart. But yeah, you can see in here how the bag kind of sits inside of the grooves. It's all molded to it and all that stuff. So I think that's pretty sweet from a technical standpoint. And basically, when you first start running around in these, it's going to be pretty stiff, pretty firm. The more that you play in it, the more that does kind of break in. This is something that I did not experience with the Air Jordan 3 or 4, and I probably won't experience this with the Air Jordan 6, 7, 8, and 9, because those have that kind of more dense polyurethane than this one. This one's a little bit more like, I don't know what to call it, like fluffy or foamy or something like that. But basically, this one's a little bit better as far as like break-in time, whereas the other polyurethane midsoles were quite a bit more dense and they didn't quite break in, even though they did offer some compression. Over time, like I said, the heel was okay. No complaints. The forefoot, you're still real low to the ground. It's something that you're going to have to build up and get used to if you haven't worn anything that's that low. But over time, you definitely get used to it, and it's not too bad. Not as much pain after the fact as I was having in the Air Jordan 3 and 4 with the Air Jordan 5 here. So material and fit. The material on this particular pair is that nubuck, and then the other versions are leather. This material, it didn't require much break-in time, if any, which is good, and I like that. However, it just doesn't hold up as good as a leather product would, especially the newer leather products. Stuff like this right here, this is a full grain leather, so once this stuff breaks in, you're pretty much, you know, that's what it is, and it's going to be pretty loose fitting and things like that over time. Same with the nubuck that they use here. The newer leather is that cheaper leather, the split grain. So you have like the leather base, and then over it you have that polyurethane top coat, which gives it a little bit more strength. So that one, as far as material goes, is a little bit more supportive in the long run, and it's a lot more durable as well. Because this stuff, well, you can't see it really on here, but like along the edges and the sides and things like that, like the nubuck just kind of got like wiped off with impact and things like that. So instead of getting a scuff, it ended up kind of like, I don't know what to call it, like smoothing out the material. But other than that, I thought the materials were fine. I just would have preferred to have played in something with the that split grain leather upper, like what we had seen with the Countdown pack. But I was trying to play in the most recent of Air Jordan 5 Retros, which is this guy right here. And as far as the fit goes, I thought the fit was okay. It wasn't anything perfect. The midfoot, it's definitely a good lockdown, and then you have the ability to alternate your lace loops from the top to the bottom here, so you can get additional lockdown throughout the midfoot here, so you can really enclose that in. The top section here didn't have the best heel and ankle, lockdown that it could have offered. I even had to lace these up in the back holes, and it didn't help too much. This was the one that was like actually heavily padded and sculpted to the heel, which was nice at first. Once moisture started to build up, it almost sucked in all of that moisture, and so it kind of like made your foot slide around a little bit more than it should have or could have had there not been a lot of padding there. So it's a good and a bad thing. The forefoot is where I had a problem. I thought the forefoot was a little bit sloppy. If you wanted to, you could go down half a size. You would still have that issue with the sloppy forefoot fit, so just be aware of that. You kind of get used to it, but again, same thing with like that heel traction. When I'd get that little small slip, while in transition, when you're running and curling around the screen, your foot is going to stay planted pretty well because of the traction, but your foot inside is going to slip a little bit and shift left to right, again causing just a slight bit of hesitation on your part. You lose a couple of maybe milliseconds Those milliseconds do count, especially if you're a guard. You want that quick first step, and if you have them beat and then you hesitate slightly just because your foot kind of slips inside the shoe a little bit, that's going to kind of hurt your game, and it's going to cause you to not react as quickly as you could have against your opponent. So in that sense, I thought the fit definitely could have been better. I thought the Air Jordan 3 and the Air Jordan 4 had a way better fit than these, surprisingly, because I was hoping that these would have a much better fit than what they actually offered. As far as ventilation is concerned, you pretty much have the same exact setup as you did with the Air Jordan 4. You have the mesh vents on both the medial and lateral sides, and then you also have that all the way down the tongue. This stuff was slightly less breathable just because of that plastic or rubber coating, whereas the Air Jordan 4 had that like really thin net material, so it really allowed that heat to escape. But when I say slightly, I mean like very, very slightly. Hopefully you're going to be able to see this. I doubt you will, just because it's all black inside, but inside the tongue there are large perforations just like there were in the Air Jordan 4. And then all the way at the base of the tongue here, there is a small cluster in a circular motion of more perforations there. So you get a pretty good amount of ventilation throughout the tongue. It's actually effective and it does work, which is nice. It's not going to be the most breathable shoe, but it's better than nothing. And then right in here, there is a thin lining that is behind that net, and that's also pretty breathable. Once again, it's a little bit more breathable than the tongue because the tongue has a lot of that cotton and padding inside of it, whereas the sidewalls here don't have anything. It's just a small thin layer of fabric. So pretty much the same thing. I'm going to probably grade this just slightly less than the Air Jordan 4, but you pretty much have the same exact setup as far as the ventilation is concerned. And you know, honestly, it's not anything too horrible, and it's pretty much what you'd expect, especially if you'd played in the Air Jordan 4 beforehand. This is a definite upgrade from the Air Jordan 3. Slight drawback just because of the top material layer from the Air Jordan 4, which in my opinion it's not really a big deal. And for a shoe that was made in the 90s, or man, when were these made? Yeah, I think it was 1990. It's definitely not that big of a deal in my opinion. As far as support, just like all of the other previous early model Air Jordans, you don't have much support that, you know, what we're used to today as far as carbon fiber, shank plates, TPU, heel cups, things like that. So basically you just have a molded arch for support. You have a thin internal heel counter, but I don't think this is TPU. I don't know what it is. I'm just pretty sure it's not TPU. It's a lot more flexible and forgiving than TPU. And the ankle area here, it could have been just this pair, or it could have just been the, you know, my foot strikes and things like that, but I definitely did not feel any additional support with the height of the collar here within the ankle and heel. So, especially when I'm really low, curling around screens and getting just really, really down in there, I do feel my ankle somewhat weak, where it could have been a little bit better with the material itself. A little bit more supportive, like I was saying earlier with the material section. If this were the pair that features that kind of split grain leather that has that polyurethane coat, like the countdown packs and things like that, I think that would have been a little bit more support along the upper versus this particular shoe, which is the nubuck version. So in my opinion, if you were going to play in a pair of Jordan 5s, I would probably not play in this particular colorway. I'd look for something with a leather upper, personally. I think that one would give you overall a little bit more support than what this one right here. Alright guys, so that pretty much takes care of the performance review on the Air Jordan 5. This is part 5 of the Air Jordan project. Overall, this is a pretty decent shoe. Could be better as far as material upper support with the material itself. I thought that the Air Jordan 3 and the Air Jordan 4 are a lot better in the fit and material department versus this particular colorway here. And then I thought that the cushion was a lot better in this one over time versus the Air Jordan 3 and 4. So it's kind of like, you know, pick your poison in that sense. But you know, pretty much it's a decent shoe. If I was going to pick one to play in, I'd pick one with a leather upper instead, just because of the support factor. So that pretty much takes care of it. Thank you guys for all your support. Thanks for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to nightwing2303.com for all of your performance needs as well as the performance scores. So you can go down in the description box and there's going to be a link to my site there. So thanks again, and until next time guys.